Cool. So my name is Chelsea Angelo. I'm 24 years old. I'm still living at home with my parents. I don't have a wife. I don't have a husband. I don't have a boyfriend. I've got one pet at home. I've got a pet bird or a pet parrot. Her name is Nitro. I know, so cliche of me to call it Nitro. But yeah, she's been with the family for about, I think it's 7 or 8 years now. I have a younger sister. Her name's Brandy, and she's 21. She's It's funny because I'm the older sibling that's really into cars and motorsport and anything adrenaline, and then my younger sister is literally the complete opposite. I like to call it she's the yin to my yang sort of thing. So like I'm very I guess I'm more so black and white with a lot of things, whereas she's just on the other end of the scale. So she's actually doing an apprenticeship in hairdressing, believe it or not. So I'm quite lucky as a sister to get my hair done whenever I need it. So she does that, and I obviously do my driving instructing work and racing in between. And then my other day-to-day job is working at a cafe in hospitality. So it's full on in my life.
Well, you have got a lot to go on there. That's good. And where do you actually
Yeah.
live here? You live in Melbourne, don't you?
Yeah, I live in Melbourne. I live in a suburb called Templestowe, which is sort of a bit more northeast suburbs of Melbourne. I've been here all my life, so which has been really nice. It's quite handy. Templestowe is sort of not too far, I guess, from the inner city of Melbourne. It's about half an hour to travel into the city. But yeah, it's a good little area, and it's half an hour to the city and then it's half an hour to Sandown. So we're sort of like a bit smack bang in the middle, if you say.
Very good. And so getting on to the topic of cars, what was your first car?
So my first car, and still is my first car, is my Toyota 86. I had eyed that off when I was like about to go for my driver's license, and I remember the day that me and Dad, we were looking on car sales. So we got my 86 as a second-hand car, but it was actually quite practically brand new. It was built in the year 2013, GDS model as well. Dad actually, I really wanted this particular car. So this particular car was a burnt orange sort of looking car. And I love the color. As soon as I saw it on car sales, I was like, yeah, this is the car. I wanted it manual as well because my family, we all have manual cars, and Dad was like refusing. You're not getting an automatic. You're going to learn how to drive a manual. I mean, even though I was like turning 18, I already knew how to drive manuals anyway. So that was no drama. But the cool story about this is that the car was based in Sydney. So Dad actually jumped on a flight himself, flew to Sydney, then somehow like got a taxi or got an Uber to the location of where the car is. And then got the car and then drove it all the way back from Sydney to Melbourne and surprised me for my 18th birthday. I had no idea. Like he knew that I loved the car so much. And I didn't actually know he got on a flight and drove all the way from Sydney to Melbourne. Mum just made up some excuse because I was like, oh, where's Dad? And then Mum was like, oh, I don't know, doing work or whatever.
That's cool.
And yeah, and that was that. Yeah, it was so cool. I was actually like crying of like happy tears. It was so, so cool. And then I felt like the really cool, popular kid in school when I rocked up because I got my license I got my license a few days after my birthday. And I got it there and then. And then I drove to school the next day and I felt like I was this cool, popular kid at school.
And who actually taught you to drive on your L plates?
So initially when I got my L's, my mum taught me all the safety and the rules on the roads because she's a lot more of a safer driver than what my dad is. But funny story again. So mum taught me the stop signs, the traffic lights, just all that sort of stuff, which I knew how they worked, but I didn't have like a really good understanding, and just being spatial awareness of, certain other people out on the roads and all that. But I remember when I was about, I think it was like 13, 14, and at that time I was racing go-karts. So 13 and 14, I was doing swimming lessons And I remember Dad used to pick me up in his van, and his vans were obviously manual. And I know this is so illegal, but he used to let me sit on his lap while he controlled the pedals, and I was actually learning how to change the gears on the manual. So
I
I
still
guess,
need someone to do that for me. I can't reach the pedals, so I need someone to do that half
yeah,
for
I
me.
know. I was so small. I was literally just sitting on his lap, and I was controlling the steering and all that. And then this is the really messed up part. Okay, some people might think this is really messed up or really funny, but every time Dad saw a cop, we would literally do this thing called a switcheroo. So like I would, because we were in a van, it was only 2 seats, what would happen is that I would undo the belt, switcheroo into the center where it's all free because you've got the van part in the back. And then Dad would quickly, put his seatbelt back on, and then I would switch back into the passenger seat. It was honestly like the most sketchiest thing we've ever done. We were doing this while we were driving on the road. So God
Did your
help
mum know that
us
this
that we
happened?
didn't. Yes, Mum did know that happened, and she was like absolutely shocked with what Dad was doing and all that. But we kind of find it really funny, and Mum's super chill and super relaxed. But yeah, as soon as I got my eldest, Mum was like, I'm teaching you how to be a safe driver on the roads. Don't you ever turn out like your father, blah, 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 blah. It was really cool. It was really cool. So
That's
that was
good.
my childhood memories. Yeah.
Great story. Linked to that was when and how did you start racing? And you mentioned go-karts when you were 13 there. So what triggered you to get into go-karts? Was someone else in the family already doing it? Or did you go to a go-kart track and go, that's what I want to do? Or...
Yeah, so the whole backstory behind that was Dad was a racer himself back in the day. And then he obviously stopped racing because he had like at least 2 pretty bad accidents to the point where one of his legs were pretty much in an amputation sort of survival mode. And at that time, I was pretty young. At that time, I was actually racing dirt bikes because my dad used to race motorbikes back in his days, and I was obviously the oldest one in the family. So he was like, "Hey, Chels, have a go at this and see what you think of it." Like there was no sort of sense of pressure or anything like that. So I saw the little Pee-wee 50, which another story he actually got for my younger sister, but my younger sister just did not like it at all. So then I took it and went out and learnt the ropes of how to drive a dirt bike and how the clutch and the gears and all that work. And then literally like one thing led to another, and then he put me in some races on dirt bikes on my little KTM bike because he used to race as well before his accident. And then once he had his accident like ages and ages ago, that's when Mum was like, right, we're cutting bikes, we're not doing racing anymore, blah blah blah. So I was pretty upset about it, but then Dad knew someone in the go-karting environment and knew someone who had a kart, so it was like a family friend sort of thing. And then Dad's mate was like, let Charles have a go on the go-kart, and then I had a go, and then I was very, very, very slow. I was literally like traveling around like a snail because I was so used to riding bikes, right, that I didn't sort of, it was just all different. And then obviously go-karts, I've just got the throttle and the brake. There's no clutches. There's
Yeah.
nothing of that. And I was like, oh, this is actually like pretty easy. And I was like 8. No, hang on. I was about, 8 or 9 at the time. So I was doing bikes from about like 6, did that for a few years. And I think it was about 9 or 10 was when I got into a kart. And then, like same old story, just one thing led to another. And we signed up to the Todd Road membership and did some club days and did some championships there at my local track. And then we did some Victorian Open championships. We did some state championships. We did some country championships, like you name it, everything out there. And then, we started to get a couple of podiums. I got my first pole in like my second year of karting. And then I just didn't think anything of it. I was just doing it because I enjoyed it as a family. It was really, really good. Like my sister got into it as well. And my mum used to come down and Dad used to come down, and Dad would be the pit crew mechanic and Mum would help push the carts down to the grid and all that. And then, and then after that, I had some people comment that I was actually actually, she's pretty good. She should try and step up into cars one day. And that's when the opportunity came about for this, it was like a McGale Formula Ford, like open test day thing back
Yep.
then. And I
Is
was
that with
15.
Greg Woodrow?
Yeah, exactly. And I was 15, and then I had an opportunity to test drive in the Formula Ford at Winton. Got into that, loved it. I picked up on it straight away. I wasn't one of those kids that took ages and ages and ages to learn the ropes of things. I just got in it, and it just happened naturally. And then signed up to a team, did that for 2 years, and then just one thing led on to another. And then I started meeting really important people that could help me progress my career, which then it led on to Formula 3. It led on to Super 2. It led on to like a test day in a Formula Renault over in Asia in Zhuhai. Came back, and then we did Super 2 for a bit, and then started getting really expensive. So then we had to cut a year just because sponsorship just wasn't happening for us. And then we met a few more people, and then it's the same old story that we got the money and then we started racing again. And it's sort of like, in this sport, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate enough to know a lot of people in my career to be able to get where I am today. And then got into TCR last year through the Dare sponsorship. So I was with Kelly Racing last year. We just had a deal to do 3 rounds, and we were hoping to gain some more sponsorship after that. But then drama after drama, as you're aware, happened with TCR last year. Like our Astros were just falling apart. Engine dramas, brake dramas, like the master cylinder collapsed or broke twice at Philippine. I remember it was my scariest meeting ever. Yeah, it was horrible. We had front splitter issues. It was like sort of scraping on the ground where it created a hole under the front splitter. So my whole front end, every time I turned into a corner, was just shit. And then, race 1, I felt the brake pedal sort of go like halfway to the floor, really soft. So I instantly backed off right away, and I was like, no, this is not right. Then we came in and bled the brakes, and they thought they solved the issue. It went out in race 2. It happened again, and they found the master cylinder failed. So it was a horrible year last year. I mean, I'm grateful that I was able to do it, but wasn't the results that we wanted. And then Adelaide last year, engine fail, and then Andre raced it at Queensland and blew it up. So it was honestly a lemon, like a dud lemon of an engine. And then that was me out for the rest of the year, and then was going to go into it again this year at the Grand Prix with, I'm having a mental blank. The team that I was with, I forgot. They ran Aaron Cameron last year.
Oh, yeah.
I'm having a mental blank.
In the Hyundai.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. And then ran at the Grand Prix, got the Thursday practice in. I was like, super excited, and then COVID hit. So that's sort of my backstory with my whole racing, and I'm hoping to get back into TCR again. Don't know if TCR will start up again this year. They're looking to possibly do a summer series for TCR for the 2020 season, and then go into 2021. So technically they're thinking of like no Christmas break or no holiday break, but just sort of do like a Toyota New Zealand racing series, the TRS series. They're sort of thinking of doing it like that.
So with your racing experience, you've had an opportunity to race. You kind of outlined some of it already just there, but so Formula Ford, did you actually race Formula Ford, or that was just testing?
Yeah. So 2012 was when I did a full year of testing, and the following year was when I raced.
Yep. And then you've also raced Formula 3, Super 2, GT3 Cup, and TCR. So quite a fair range of cars from lower powered, higher powered, some with aero, some without, all sorts of stuff. Quite a mix of cars there. Which one's been the most enjoyable to drive?
I think, honestly, the most enjoyable for me was probably the Porsches. And I think that's honestly come from Formula 3. The aerodynamics are not exactly the same, but they're somewhat similar. So that's probably why I enjoyed Porsches a lot more, because I was just a lot more wiser and more mature going to Porsches than what I was going into Formula 3. I was only 17 and I was just sort of like doing it because I was doing it. And then going into Porsches, I just sort of switched the light on. I was like, I really want to do well in this, and trained really hard for it and did all that and just adapted to the car really well. So, and Porsches was a fun year because I was with Wool Racing at the time. It had a very friendly team environment, which is what I enjoyed the most. I love the car to bits, love the team and how they work and all of that. So that still to date has been my favorite year. Oh, and also of course because I got a podium in Porsches at Queensland Raceway, which was, I remember it clear as day. It was awesome. It was such a good race. So yeah, that's probably why it was my favorite.
That's good. And I like that when you described why you enjoyed it, it's not just because of the car, but it was the environment that you were provided in that as well, which is what makes it fun. And I think people forget about that. They think they see us out there racing, but they forget that it's actually so much on behind the scenes that's a predominant part of the weekend is with the team. And you need to have some enjoyment out of that part of it too, which is obviously why your experience in the Porsches was enjoyable.
Yeah.
About driver training now, how did you move into or get involved in driver training? Because not every racing driver gets the opportunity to do that or has a desire to do that or can do it well. So how did you get that opportunity to transition in towards driver training? And just to be clear, you did this well before Evolve Driving had you on board. That was something that we met through other organisations, and that's how we came about.
Yeah. Yeah, so I actually haven't been doing instructing for a very long time. I think it's coming up to about 2 years now, I think. But my first encounter with instructing was that I was in contact with Peter Hackett, who obviously runs the Mercedes-Benz driving events around the country and New Zealand and Taiwan and all that. So again, it was another story through a connection. I met David Cuffy. I met Cuffy at a tennis match event with an old friend of mine. And then I remember him saying
random, isn't it?
at the time, hey?
Random that it was at a tennis event rather than a driving related event.
Yeah. It was through a friend of mine, and we went to the tennis together, and she knew Cuffy. And then I met Cuffy. And I knew of Cuffy because of like people were talking about him and all that, but I never actually met him properly. Then we met, and then we were just talking about my racing initially, and then we started talking about instructing. And then he was like, "Oh, have you ever gotten into instructing or anything like that?" I said, "No, I've never really sort of looked at it. I've just sort of really focused on my racing career, and that was it." And then he was like, "Oh, you should get in contact with a guy called Peter Hackett." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I've heard of the bloke before. Does this, does that, blah blah blah." And then next minute I flicked him an email, and then I said to him, I was like, "Look, I'm do this, blah, 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 race this, done this, da, 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 da." Went on for a rant. And then I was like, "If you ever need a female instructor or are looking for a female instructor, I'd be happy to put my hand up and work for you, blah, blah, blah." And then next minute he was like, "Yep, okay, cool. When are you free next?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm free, blah, blah, blah." And he's like, "Right, okay, your first event is at New Zealand with the MBDE team." And honestly, at the time I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know Dean. I didn't even know what to expect, because you probably know Pete. He doesn't give you any pre-information with what to expect. And then, yeah, you literally roll into it. And that's what happened to me. So I was honestly shitting myself flying to New Zealand. Even though I traveled to Asia and Austria with the W Series and all that on my own before, I was sort of a bit like nervous because it was a couple of years ago and I sort of didn't know what to expect. So I got to New Zealand, I met all the guys. I knew about half of them through the racing industry, but then I never met like Guy Stewart. I never met Lincoln. I never met any of those blokes that work with Pete. So I met them and I was like, "Oh guys, I sort of like don't really know what to expect. Like Pete's just asked me to do this event. I don't know what I'm doing." And then they gave me like a 5-minute brief of what to do. And then honestly, Dean, I just learned everything by myself.
Yeah,
I mean, my
pretty
first
much how
gig
you
was
have to do it in the Mercedes events. Yeah. And it can
Yeah,
be a
so
bit
I
laddie
remember it
there
was
as
sort of a
well.
bit.
There's quite a few little cliques of
Hmm.
lads and groups and things over there. And so
Yeah,
how did,
I
how
know.
how
I
did you find
know.
fitting in
Yeah.
as a female? Like I see you as one of our instructors. I don't see you as a female, just that you happen to have longer hair than some of the other boys. But the the fact that there's such a laddie group over there, it's in the Mercedes camp. Was that difficult to get involved in?
It was. I was sort of a little bit intimidated by everyone there because not only I didn't know what to expect, some of them knew of me. And, there was talk and word going around then that there was another female instructor that had worked for them, which we both know who that was. And so she left with a pretty bad name for herself, and then that's sort of all I heard. So I wanted to make an impression that I was a hard worker. I am a hard worker, and I'll do anything that the guys do. It's just, it's kind of like I'm not afraid to get my hands sort of dirty if I need to. I mean, yeah, I've got nails, I like my beauty, got long hair, and I like my fashion and makeup, but it doesn't stop me from doing the correct part of the job. I'm not there to get away from Victoria or go on a bit of a trip or meet other people and all that. I'm actually there because I like dealing with customers or clients that get a satisfaction of feeling really good about themselves when they drive a fast car, because not everyone has the chance or the opportunity to go out on a racetrack with an instructor to drive fast but in a safe environment.
Yeah.
So I loved it, and most of the guys were accepting. I've honestly, Dean, never had a problem with all of the instructing
Yeah.
events that I've been to. Everyone is so warm, everyone's so welcoming. I've had a little bit of, not tips or anything, but certain, customers that think they can drive better than what everyone else can do and all that. But that's just the industry. You're going to get that anyway.
You'll get that as a bloke as well.
But
Yeah.
then yeah, exactly. And then I just remember doing the event, and I didn't know much about the cars. Like, I knew obviously my information about cars and all that, but I didn't know any particular things about these type of cars that were on site. And I remember they had the new A35s, and they had the new this, they had the new that. And I was like, I don't know much about this car. And I was put on an activity where I was doing like a sort of hot lap, or like like a hot lap activity, and sort of had to explain to customers what, the car's features, how many cylinders, what's the torque, what's the kilowatt, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, there's too many cars to know about because it's such a big range.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then I was like, like, I'm here as a driving instructor. If they want to know about, how big the engine size is, or how big, how much is the torque, how much is a kilowatt, if they want to know about that, honestly, I would just send them off to a bloke that would know more about it, because I'm there to teach them the driving skills and the driving aspects. If you want to know about that sort of stuff, go to a dealership and they'll tell you about it.
Yeah.
Like, that's not what you're sort of here for, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, totally.
I just said that to myself. And then I just build confidence within myself to say, you know what, I have the credits, I'm a professional racer, I know how to drive, don't doubt yourself, just go in there and explain to customers how you would drive, but obviously simplify it to them a bit more. And then I did it, and then I got a lot of respect from all of my colleagues, and then I've been working with Pete and the team ever since. And then that obviously led into other opportunities. Sort of, I guess the word gets out there that, she's really good, she's good with customers, she's a good instructor, blah, blah, blah. And then that's how, can't remember how I got into Jaguar. I think it was
The same
through
thing.
maybe half. Yeah. It
Everyone
was just
knows
honestly
everyone.
like word of mouth. Yeah, exactly. And then they asked you to do events and all that, and then we met. It's been really good so far.
What about from that driver training experience? What are some of the scary times being a driving coach? What's sort of the times where you think, why am I doing this, or why am I sitting next to this person? What's going on here?
Look, I think between you and I and every other instructor out there, we've all had like a little bit of a scary moment, whether that's with a customer or something else. But I've never had really a huge scary accident, because I haven't been in a situation yet, and touch wood. that I don't, where the car actually goes off and hits a wall. So
Yeah.
I haven't had that yet, and I hope my luck doesn't change after this interview. But I remember doing my first ever AMG event with Mercedes, and I've heard some stories where it can get hectic. A lot of big heads can come into it. A lot of ego men think that they can drive with a very high powered vehicle and all that. And I'm like, and then I started doubting myself, and I was like, well, can you imagine if a young bloke who's about like 25, 26, and he's got a female instructor that's younger than him, do you honestly think he would listen to me? That's honestly how I felt. But then I was like, no, screw this. I have the credentials. I know what I'm talking about. And if they don't think they can trust me or whatnot, well, then I'll just bring it up with whoever's running the event and they can deal with it. And I get that some people learn different ways and some people might not learn from, what I'm teaching them, and another instructor could be better for them. I totally get that. But yeah, you just get like 1 out of like 20 of them. Most of them are really, really good, really want to learn and get something out for the day. But you're always going to get that one twit that just comes in and thinks he can drive, or she, but they can't.
But you haven't had any major scares then? Nothing major that really pooped your pants?
No, I haven't. I personally haven't, but I've actually seen a pretty big scare. It was at the Bend where we went for the AMG week last year. And it was the Bend, it's very, very windy, and it was wet. I remember he was in one of the GT cars and came down the straight and literally came in sideways, and just on the pit exit where the wall ends, he literally scraped it, I think, on the left rear guard by like that much. And he was going easily like 200k. It was just, I saw a video of it because one of the videos from the Bend actually got it. Yeah, right. And we saw it, and I was like, it was hectic. And then I was like, honestly, and sometimes I think, why am I even doing this? But I'm like, I do it because I enjoy it myself, but I also enjoy the fact that other people, I love seeing other enjoyment in other people better than what I see in myself, if that makes sense.
And so during your driver training, have you coached anyone famous?
No, but I have been at the same event where I've seen a famous person that I actually follow on Instagram. So I haven't personally coached. Her name, she is a influencer sort of thing. Her name is Steph Claire Smith, and she came in with this girl called Brooke Hogan. All the girls would know her. And then I remember it was at Sandown, and I was like doing the coffee for the morning guests, and then I came in and they were coming over, and I was like, oh my God, you're such a goddess. But I never actually coached them, but I've seen them at the same event. So
I'll have to hook you up with someone famous then.
I know, it'd be cool.
So when you're not on track, whether it be racing or driver training, you've mentioned you do some work at the cafe and stuff, but what other hobbies and activities and things do you do?
Yeah, so I'm, you obviously know this, but I'm really into my fitness, and especially with lockdown at the moment, I've literally been training about 6 days a week, even sometimes 7. I know that's a lot, but when you think about it, it's only 45 minutes out of the 24-hour day. And there's nothing else that you can really do. I just love my fitness. I love the feeling of really doing a good cardio session, and then sometimes if it's not raining here in Melbourne, I'll go out for a nice walk in my area. So apart from that, pre-COVID and pre-isolation, my other hobbies is jet skiing. I always go up to Lake Epilogue, which is sort of heading up near Bendigo Way, with my dad. It's normally me and my dad that will go because we love it. My mum and my sister will come when they sort of feel like they want to come, but usually me and my dad will go up. We go hardcore, so we've got 2 Kawasaki stand-up skis that we take, and he's also got a Sea-Doo sit-down ski that we also take up if the whole family is coming, but usually because Dad's got a Volkswagen van and he's made little compartments to fit the 2 stand-up skis in the van, so he doesn't have to take a trailer with him. Take that, roll it out of the van. Yeah, roll it out of the van, and then just go. And then we literally spend the whole day. And the reason why we love stand-ups is because me and my dad love a challenge. So it just gives us a challenge. And Dad was a pro ski racer as
Yeah,
well.
right.
So he was like, here, I have this. So literally everything that he did, he was like, here, have a go, have a go, have a go. And knowing me, I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? That looks easy, or blah, 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 you know?
You sound like you really enjoy challenging yourself. You don't find yourself looking at something going, oh, that's a bit difficult. You go, yeah, I'll give it a go. And then you
Uh,
work it out from there.
yeah. Yeah, I'll give it a go. And then some things I'm like, nah, it's not my cup of tea, don't like.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it seems like, you know, you look at bungee jumping or you look at skydiving, you're like, oh, like it looks scary as, but I think if I was in the moment and I was forced to do it, I'd probably do it. But in saying that, there's some things like that where I'm like, nah, I don't know. But in terms of anything like adrenaline or anything fast, I'm like all up for it, you know?
Yeah.
So that's another hobby of mine, especially in the summer, and hopefully Melbourne will sort of go back to normal after these next 4 weeks, and hopefully we can go out and ski again. Everything else is pretty much the same. Love catching up with my girlfriends, going out for lunches and dinners and all that. Love my music. Every time I go on a race weekend, it's always like full on heavy, like metal or rap music to like get me pumped up. Like full on
Have you listened to Ricky at all? Have you listened to any of his beats that he's been putting down?
Yeah, you know what? Oh, I think it was on your day at Phillip Island. He got in the car. He was like, "Oh, have you heard this really good like rap song?" And then I was like listening to it. And I thought it was only like 2 minutes or something. And I'm like, it sounds really shit. Who's this bloke? And then I actually sent it. Oh, the poor bloke. He was like, and then someone else was in the car. I think it was White Dog, and White Dog was in the car. And then I was like, I don't know who this is, but it's just, it's not my cup of tea. And then I reread the name properly, and it was like Capo. And I was like, Ricky, is that you? And I was like, you put in the effort to make a rap song? That is so impressive. And then I was like, yeah, I still don't like it.
I think he's even changed his Instagram handle now. He's got a new name, a new rap name.
Yeah, what is it? Yeah, it's like number X or something like that.
Yeah.
I know. I was like, oh, okay.
You mentioned earlier about driving overseas. It's always exciting when you get an opportunity like that. So you've had 2 different opportunities overseas, is that right?
Yeah, so the first one I mentioned was I got an opportunity to test drive the Formula Renault 2-litre in Asia, in Zhuhai, and I was looking at doing a race season in that, but that came down to money, so we didn't do that. And the other one was the most recent one, which was a couple of years ago, is the W Series, when I went over and did that selection test in Austria.
And you told me about that, I think, was it snowing or something when you did that, or was it really cold or something?
Yeah, so Austria at that time was just snowing, super, super cold. I sort of have like different thoughts about the W Series every time I talk about it, but initially, look, I believe it's a really good program to help women achieve their goal to get where they want to get. I personally don't believe in an all-female racing team. I personally believe if you're good enough, regardless what gender you are, you should be at the front. That's just how I see it. That's how I've been raised. I'm not a feminist in that sense. I just sort of like, you know what? Yeah, I'm a female and love doing all female things, but, you know, and I love racing too, but that's not going to, you know, if I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough. I can accept that, but a lot of people can't accept that. So we went over to W Series. I was all for it. Did the selection test, and I knew I'd like, because I drove F3 and it was exactly the same car. So doing certain tests that they had at the selection process was just not realistic to what driving a Formula 3 car is. Like, for example, to predict our smoothness, we would have to drive around the Austria track that they had in Melk somewhere in 6th gear. And it was icy, it was it was snowy. And we had to drive around the track in 6th gear. So we had to come into a hairpin and the car would be like, whoa, like bogging out of the corner. I'm like, how can you predict a smoothness in these conditions and from driving in sixth gear. So I was like, it's just so weird. And
Yeah.
then another activity was driving a car on jacks to predict your reaction and timing and all of that and control. And I'm like, this is just not, I don't know. I didn't say it. I can understand what they were trying to do. And the last one was that we were driving around in snow and ice. And I'm like, you're never going to go to a race meeting where firstly there is ice, or secondly there's snow, and thirdly we're talking about a Formula 3 where the thing's got aerodynamics on it. Like, you know, it just sort of frustrated me in that way. And there were certain things that I was like, this is just so pointless to me and whatever and all that. And then, you know, did things about psychological tests, the fitness test was a little bit average. It was your standard basic fitness test that you would do. So obviously the beep test was in it, how far you can stretch your feet out, like when you're laying on your bottom and your feet are out and you have to go down and bend to reach your toes, a standard hand grip, just all that sort of stuff, a standard plank test. So I just found it sort of very basic and average in that sense. And yeah, then they did the selection process, and obviously I wasn't selected to the next stage, which was pretty gutting, because I wasn't expecting to have an upper hand, but there was only probably about half a dozen girls that have driven Formula 3. So I just sort of, maybe they might have thought, oh, you know what, she might actually have a real good chance. She's done open wheels for 3 years. Let's try and give her a chance to run in the F3. I think if I had have gotten to that next stage, I probably still would be doing it. But I haven't. And then I reapplied again and I didn't get selected, never got applied. So, and I was like, I'm doing TCR, I've got this lined up, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
You know, I've got probably the most experience. I've probably got the most experience in the racing side of things in terms of driving Formula 4, a Formula 3 with wings and slicks, a Super 2 V8 car, to a Porsche GT3, which is a rear-wheel drive with the engine in the back, to a complete opposite car, to a front-wheel drive 2-litre 350 brake horsepower thing. Like, I just, yeah. So it was a bit sus, a bit strange, I guess. And I think a lot of politics came into it, and there's a lot of favoritism in that. My second big accident was again at Phillip Island, and that was over Lukey Heights, but in the Formula 3 this time. So they say that technically when you've got brand new tyres and it's a nice, perfect sunny day and the track's got a lot of grip, you can easily go flat over Lukey Heights down into MG. And I was like, that sounds a bit sketchy, but I was like, I'm up for the challenge. So I went for it and I did it for the first lap or two, and I was like, yep, I've got this now, super confident. And then next thing I did it on lap 3, and I can't remember exactly what happened, but it's like I was just offline by the slightest millimeter, because if you go flat around Lukey, it has to be perfect. So I think I might have been the slightest offline, and then just got into the gravel and the car sort of turned on itself. And then over the top back part of Lukey Heights was when I went into the tyre wall into the rear. So coming in backwards like that. Yep. So it completely screwed the whole engine. And that, luckily that was just a test day, but I was pretty gutted about it. And the whole car was sort of like concaved into the whole tyre barrier wall. So I was just like sitting there, and it was like, again, missing my head from like centimeters away. That was pretty scary, and I remember getting out of it and I was like, I was so badly whiplashed on my neck.
How do you bounce back confidence wise from a big one like that?
That's hard. Yeah, that's really hard. I mean, crashes like that sort of put a little bit of a damper on you, but honestly I washed them away and got on with it. Obviously really. You're paranoid about that particular corner, and you might be sort of a bit like softer than what you were previously. But if you honestly keep thinking about that sort of stuff, it just plays on your mind, and then your performance won't be as good. So I was just taught to move on. It's happened. Don't dwell on it. You can't do anything about it. It's there. The damage is there. As long as you're okay, both physically and mentally, then you can continue doing what you need to do. So, and I was confident because the cars that I raced in were reliable, like in terms of the safety paramount was there. You know, if you're in a car out the road, you'd be dead instantly. So yeah, that gave me confidence too.
Thank you for sharing. It's never easy to draw back upon those sorts of incidents. I know that from firsthand experience, but I think it's interesting for some people to hear that happens to all of us. You know, that we have all had incidents on track, and you know, it's how you bounce back from it. That is how you
Yeah,
move on. So
yeah.
the final question I had was just to find out whether you have any sort of motivational statement that you want to share. Have you got something, a mantra of some sort that you live by, or have you got a tattoo of this motivational statement on you?
No, I don't have anything like that, but I do normally go by, it's a typical motto statement is to just never give up on things that you want to achieve in life, whether that's racing, career. I mean, I can understand certain things can get in the way. Like I can say to myself, never give up on my racing dreams, but unfortunately there's a factor that can stop that, which is finance, and I can't do anything about that.
Mhm.
But I think if I just keep continually working on myself and better myself as a person and just always think in the back of my mind, something will happen if you work hard for it, and just never give up on things that you want to achieve and do what you want to do, and so be it. And, you know, you're going to come through good people in life, and you're kind of going to come through bad, shitty people in life. So, and that's just how it works. And, you know, you just got to focus on yourself and keep doing what's best. And that's sort of what I go by at the moment.
Fantastic, fantastic. And I really thank you and appreciate your sharing all of that information with us today. It's been a really fantastic opportunity to get an insight into you and what makes you tick in terms of when people get to see you out on track with us, then they'll know a little bit more about you. They don't just think, oh, there's one of the other instructors. They'll actually know that there's that instructor that drives a Toyota 86 that her dad drove down from Sydney for her. So, you know, little stories like that, I
Yeah.
think are going to be really good that we're able to share that with the people. So,
Yeah, no, that's good. Well, thank you for doing the interview. I really appreciate it. My first ever big accident was in Formula Ford, and this was all sort of on me at the start. I remember into turn one, there was a little bit of oil leakage coming into the mid corner part of it, and there were flags out. I was obviously a little bit cautious about it, but I must have just put the wheel right into the oil trap and spun. And then I sort of spun backwards, but then was able to sort of rejoin and go back on the track. And as I was rejoining, I had my teammate come over and sort of like collect me on the side, and the car from my GoPro vision was honestly like that. It was coming over sideways like that. Literally just missed my head. Probably like, I reckon about that much it missed my head.
that's scary.
And believe it or not, that was on the Friday of a race weekend. So like big thanks to the team at the time that fixed that car and got that car ready for qualifying in race Saturday. Anyway, so that was my first big accident. And then my final and last big crash that I've had, which again was on myself. I was coming second at Sandown in the Porsches, and I was catching the leader. And it's a funny story because the leader at the time is now my sister's boyfriend. So we always give each other shit. And I was coming, and then I was like, yep, I'm getting him. I'm getting quicker and all that. I'm like, I'm going to be like the first woman to win the Porsche GT3, which would have been insane. And then coming over the top at Sandown, I looked at the data, I think I broke like an extra 10 meters later than what I was already doing, because I was just so like pushing. And then one thing led to another, and I came over the top, and that first left-hander, it went wide. And then, you know, that hump and that crest at turn 7, all four wheels were on that. And then it just bounced the car up, got it unsettled. And then that little like hump of a corner on turn 8, I hit that on the front. And the front's just like gone on itself. And then the rears hit the Armco wall on the entry outside of turn 9. And the car was a write-off because it actually dented the tub at the front of the Porsche.
Oh, wow.
So all Porsches have got the tub at the front. And then that was obviously a part of the chassis, and that was severely dented and like pretty bad, that the car was a throwaway, unfortunately. So because
Were
that
you
car
okay?
was really good. Pardon?
Were you okay?
Yeah, no, I was fine. That was probably my most shaken up one that I've done, because I was more shaken up because I was doing really well. So that really, really hurt. That really sucked. I remember getting out of the car, and I remember David's wife, who was my engineer at the time. I was just so angry, and just not angry at anyone, but just so frustrated at myself. And I just remember getting in the medical car, not taking my helmet off, because I was just so angry and frustrated and just wanted to just tell everyone to F off. And I came out of the car and Fifey was there, and he's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm fine." I'm just sort of like grinning through my teeth.
Yeah.
Um, and then my mum and my dad and my family were there at the time. And then I was like, I'm just so angry and frustrated. And then I remember going in the truck, and I was like, I just want my mum. And then I sat with my mum, just literally, because mum's like the only person that I sort of take things out on. Because, yeah, I know that sounds bad, but she's like the closest one to me. Obviously, all
Yeah.
of my family are close. Dad was sort of disappointed because he was like, "Oh, Chelsea, we're going so well, blah, blah, blah." And that was the last thing that I needed. So I just needed comfort from my mum saying, "Oh, it's okay, it's all right." And then after about an hour, I came out of the truck, and then I apologized. I said, "I'm so sorry. I just was so angry about myself, and because I was doing really well." And then like the emotions started kicking in, and I was like, "Shit." I looked at the car. It was just a wreck, honestly. It was packed in the truck. I didn't even race Sunday, and I left. So
Mm.
that was the other big crash.
I'm really missing being on track.
Yeah,
It's
same.
more and
It's
more
so
noticeable
hard.
how much I love what I do when I'm not able to do it. So, yeah,
Same.
can't wait to
Same.
get back to
It
it.
sucks because you see like other people in different states doing certain things, and you're like, God damn it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just frustrating.